you hear is the source of pure water to the pure, water source of life. And now there is again a congress in 3 weeks, and friends from all over the world there, coming to come here, physically, because now we can as brothers, we can come together. This is when we connect, physically same as our friends from German for in Vienna. It's also worth do all the efforts to come to a mirror congress. The Creator loves it when we come together physically. Why? Because we bring the water of a sea of life to the whole of humanity. You only need to make your way exert from our sources. Number 1. But the end of the correction of the world will only be by bringing all the people in the world under his work, as it is written, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. In that day the Lord will be one, and his name one. The text specifies on that day and not before, and there are several more verses. For the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and all the nations will flow onto him. Again our first excerpt. But the end of correction of the world will only be by bringing all the people in the world under his work, as it is written, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. In that day the Lord will be one, and his name one. The text specifies on that day and not before, and there are several more verses. For the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and all the nations will flow unto him. And finally, it is the time I will fly to away where my friends are, and my great teacher. Long time already, many years, friends are together and want to meet in the past. I so often friends of my 10 German for the center, and this is now next another step, another level. We want to accept the invitation to the Congress, and we want to pray for all the friends. We know that only the Creator can help us in order to connect us, but the Creator can only help us if our prayer reaches equality and the unity, and we want to put all the efforts in order to pray, in order to come to Lishma. Friends, I want to tell you something from an experience I want to share it. I really planned to come to the Mirror Congress with the Vienna friends in my 10, and there was a big question. I was teared apart what to do, either to come to fly to Israel or to stay in Vienna, and I was nearly ready to cancel the ticket, but now decided to stay in Vienna with the friends here in Austria, because we are not so many people here, but we need to support each other, and so I decide to support the friends here in Vienna. Next please. Yes. Friends Congress is always something very special, where there's the possibility to feel the spiritual glee and to do something, to take a task, and we all will go to the Mirror Congress here next to Vienna. We have placed for 50 friends, and already 35 have registered a huge to the Congress. Please use all the opportunity. Okay, so we have an active workshop. That is not we're having communication plans. Here, what can each of us add to ensure the success of the Congress? Again, it's an active workshop. What can each of us add to ensure the success of the convention? We need to try to incorporate with one another. Each comes with his lack, with his states, but together in a simple form, we can attain something greater than this. The success of the convention is for us to reach. Every friend can start with that, to believe in that, and not prevent this process from himself, for others, and pray for it to happen to us all. If we do so, the Creator will open the gate, and we will enter this degree of Lishma, and will be great success. Add in concern, in thought, in prayer, importance, gratitude, actions, everything we can. We have to give all our might and our heart. You guys more or less summarize it all. There's not much more. All the arenas are open. We can start working in everything. Each should add and choose to add, whoever can, to contribute to the friends. Bring his form, his point of uniqueness, contributed, as they say. Each will bring his heart. That's what you have to do. Bring your heart. That's what we need to add. Yes, in internality, efforts imment, and to bring the lack for our thought as much as possible for all the friends, and externality. Simply find every possible way to help serve this awesome organization and factory of bringing the friends from the whole world and here to be a supportive part of this whole big process towards this event. Yes, every day I think we need to see where we can add, with our heart and tonality, thought to come to the convention. Optimally, Marcus writes, each of us can add in strengthening the friends in our be prayer for nearing of the friends between them and with the Creator in an appeal to the Creator as only He can help us reach Lishma. Silent workshop. We're going to enter a state where every action during the Congress is done out of the right intention. Feel that. Pray of their friends. Thank you, our Father in heaven, that we can turn to you in our prayers. For that we praise you. We seek to reach Lishma through the realization of the AR between us. We praise you for your endless goodness. We thank you for hearing our prayer. Amen. Amen. Dear friends, in the first part of the lesson, we're going to watch a recorded lesson from April 30th, 2023 on the topic of Ma. It's called The Truth. Lishma is called Falsehood. The lesson is about an hour and 17 minutes long, and then we will move towards the study between friends. Shalom. Hello, we are in a lesson on the topic of Lishma. It's called Truth. Lishma is called a lie. We're going to read selected exits from the sources. We are in exit number 9. The study material is on Sanvi system. You can also ask questions live through the sites. Anyone asking a question in the study hall should stand up, hold the microphone close to his mouth and speak loudly and clearly. Any state that we are in, we need to juxtapose it with something else by that we can measure and gauge it. And so if we're talking about Lishma, then we also have to put it against some kind of understanding of what Lishma is, and then say we're in Lishma, meaning it's a big issue, that we recognize the relationship between these two things somehow. And so the more we, as much as we appreciate and respect Lishma, Lishma is also critically important, as we understand that we're on our way to Lishma, and yet we're still missing some important quality, and we're making efforts to attain it. To define what is Lishma is not just saying that we're in it. No, also the entire world is not in Lishma. It is simply in a corporeal, beastly discernment distinction, whereas Lishma is when we realize to what extent and how much we're still in Lishma, and that we have to make efforts, and what kind of efforts, more or less, that we understand that we need to do in order to achieve Lishma. So Lishma is like doing something and measuring what we're doing, and we can somehow somewhat indicate how much we're still wrong in with respect to arriving at Lishma. What are we still missing, and that therefore Lishma is not such a simple thing. And so we have to also try to hold on to that all the time, and then from that start coming closer to Lishma. So this means to detach from our beastly perception, our corporeal perception, and approach a state where we always want to imagine ourselves on the way towards, and then bit by bit we'll start attaining the state of Lishma. All right, okay, go ahead. So we are in excerpt number 9. We can understand the great importance of Lishma, not for her sake. That is, it is not as one thinks that he does everything for the Lishma. Rather, he is doing everything because the Creator commanded him, except he was still not rewarded. Where feeling that the Creator is actually the commander. For this reason, a person thinks that the Lishma is the commander, and hence the ACT is not so important in his eyes, meaning that he distinguishes that LMA comes from the Creator and Lishma doesn't come from the Creator, and that's his mistake for now, because both come from the Creator. However, if he believes that there is none else besides him, then in truth he is observing the commandments of the Creator, and he should appreciate his action in Lishma, and one's imagination that he is only observing an act in Lishma is only because he was not rewarded yet with feeling that he is observing the king's commandment, and that he is observing that he is serving the king. Believes that the Lishma is truly the Creator committing him to engage in T and MIT. Commandments then he can give thanks to the Creator for dressing in a clothing, offish may be again exert. We can understand the great importance. The lishma, that is, it is not as one thinks, that he's due, that he does everything for the lishma for the not for her sake, rather he's doing everything because the Creator commanded him, except he was still not rewarded with feeling that the Creator is actually commander. For this reason a person thinks that the lishma is the commander, and hence the act is not so important in his eyes. However, if he believes that there is none else besides him, then in truth he is observing the commandments of the Creator, and he should appreciate his actions in lishma and one's imagination that he only observing an act in lishma is only because he was not rewarded yet with feeling that he is observing the king's commandment and that he is serving the king. Hence, if he believes that the lish is truly the Creator committing him to engage in TOA and MIT commandments, then he can give thanks to the Creator for dressing in a clothing. Bath, lishma. Short questions. Everything's clear and from abroad. As usual, what does it mean that the Creator dresses in a clothing of lishma? There is no force that works besides the Creator, and so in whatever state we're in, the Creator determines the situation, and he accompanies us through all the states so that we continue forward. Therefore, even though we think the Creator is not in our actions and our feelings, but this isn't the case. We're always under the Creator's control, and we always have to make an effort to ultimately attain him, and by that we'll bring him contentment. H10. Yes, have you said before that the lishma, the contact with the Creator person, tend to attribute, but the lish makes a mistake, and he doesn't attribute it to the Creator. What is this mistake? We always need to carry out our connection with the Creator from whatever state we're in. So, in a state of lishma, we don't feel the Creator, we're not connected to the Creator, so to speak, but we have to make efforts to get closer and discover that there's none else besides him. Whereas in ma, we already discover him and relate ourselves to him to some extent, and we further and further broaden the connection between us. How can I check myself that in the lishma I don't make this mistake and I attribute everything to the Creator? What's the gauge? What's the art? Stick through the good. The more connected you are to the friends, and you discover yourselves in contact also so from among you towards the Creator, this is called the correct direction of your efforts that you will ultimately reach. Lishma USA West. One woman USA West, one woman, woman. USA West, one woman, USA West, one. They don't hear. Okay, so one. So in other words, the whole world is following the Creator's commandments, and the Creator is clothed in Pharaoh, let's say. So, and Anish, we have a goal, but Pharaoh controls us nonetheless. Yes, good morning friends. So, understand according to the exit that there are two states of lishma. One is unaware of itself, of himself, and one when he is aware of himself. This correct? No, we're talking with respect to the person. If a person determines according to his quality, his perception, that he's in lishma, then it's lishma, meaning he still can't adhere to the Creator to some extent. If he is aware that it's LMA, what's incorporated in it also means that he knows that there is lishma. Is this correct? Because if he's all that, it's lishma in respect to what is it lishma, so there's implied here, isn't it? No, that's not how it is. What a person longs to reach adhesion with the Creator and feels that he is not in adhesion with the Creator as he would like to have, and therefore that state is called lishma. He still feels that his will to receive governs him and directs him. The exert says this: he does everything for the lishma, but he does it because the Creator commanded him, except now he is not rewarded with feeling that the Creator is the commander, and therefore he thinks that lishma is the commander. In other words, he's not aware that there's a level beyond. Or am I missing something? Well, put it that way for now. Thank you, Turkey 1T. My friend is asking what does it mean for want to appreciate his actions in Lishma, that he weighs his actions in Lishma, he understands they to come from the Creator to bring him closer to Lishma, that means that he appreciates it, that this is the path from her to Lishma. Spain 1 Spain 1. It seems like Lishma is a mirror, where a person looks at himself and discovers that he's in Lishma. So how can we accept this mirror and make it more polished? That's by connection with the friends. To the extent that he's connected to them, then he is more of the vessel of Lishma. 3 Can we say that the last stage of Lishma is love of friends, and that Lishma is the love of God? No, it's not it. Women. PT 27 is the state of Lishma and Lishma. Do they continue existing in spirituality according to the scrutiny or the screen? Yeah, you can say that more or less that's how it is. Yes, that's it. Does questions from the internet USA. Women 3 are asking, how can a person know that he achieved Lishma? What do people who achieved Lishma feel when he arrives? He'll see that it's Lishma, because this revelation itself will show him how much he's already in a state of truth. Our actions, if we attribute them to ourselves, is this Lishma. The actions that we attribute to ourselves is this Lish. This states that the actions that we relate to ourselves is that Noish is not that simple, is that I aim former and I'm still in some deviation from it. From PT 27 in spirituality are the two state to the exist in a person in parallel according to the screen that one can maintain. No, a person can be in one of two states, or from belows. What determines the quality of the connection between the friends? The measure of connection between them. That's it. Thank you. Okay, we learn that we go from the love of people to the love of the Creator. Yet can we say that in that respect? Can we say that if you do the commandment of the 10 you feel the love of the Creator? Yes, of course. Everything appears in the connection in the 10, that the level of connection with the 10 is essentially the level of attainment of the upper world. So what does it mean to do the commandment of the 10 connection in a single heart? And then we feel that we transcend the egoistic perception and interconnection between us and the ego, between us and the perception of reality in a single incorporation connection that already is spirituality. In other words, when I achieve connection with the 10, whether it's to an act that I initiate or an act of the 10, which is an act of connection, what do I want to feel in this action? A single force that nurtures you aims, you directs, you wish to discover it. And this operating force is this the Creator's commandment. The force that works within you when you're connected is the Creator himself, because we usually call commandment a correction. Is this connected, or is comprised of our states, our desires, connections, prayers, until we come to our shared desire, and in it the upper force is revealed. Thank you again, Ra. What should a person emphasize within him? How much he doesn't have enough attention and devotion, or is he that he's grateful for what he has? First of all, to be thankful for what he has, because in that he denotes the proximity to the Creator. That's 1. 2 is more deficiency, how much he wants to get to even closer. No. Again, yeah, why does he thank the Creator at the end of the excerpt? Thanks him for clothing in a clothing of Lishma, because that is the help, the means to reach Lishma. So the Creator made this degree in such a way, designed it so that through that we can reach Lishma, otherwise we wouldn't be able to directly lead to Lishma. Emma, we somewhat feel the illumination of Lishma. Mostly it is Lishma, and then we recognize that we're on the way in the middle, and then we can scrutinize what do we have, what do we lack, what do we pray for, and that's how we get closer. We meaning we are given tools to get there, and so we have to appreciate continue s concerning connection in the 10. If I feel like the words connection in the T or connection between us, when I look at friends, and I try to look within on the words connection between us. I feel like there's this glass wall. Okay, look at them, I know them. Already, we've been through experiences together. Now we're saying again, connection between us, but we already connected. There's nowhere else to jump to. How do I see it every time that there is so much more to discover in the connection between us, so much more to do. You have to try to feel this wall that is between you and how you don't let it go, doesn't matter what. And you're trying to cancel it each time. More and in accumulating all these efforts, you ultimately make this wall or this boundary disappear, and then the more you become incorporated in a single heart, you begin to feel spirituality. How do I dissolve this wall? This wall exists already, it exists in advance. Yet so I go to Dr. Vlad, and I know him. I spoke to him about the importance of the goal. I spoke to him about the connection between us. We read articles, we went to congresses, a assembly of friends we had together. He's right here next to me. What can I do today to connect even more to something I know so well already? This depends on opening the heart, for which you have to turn to the Creator and ask. It's not that you can do it on your own, and there's no one who's excelling in this, but rather whoever gets more help from the Creator is more successful. And why does the Creator help someone more than someone else? That depends on Psalm 7. Some data, how much is point of the heart is greater, how much he prays more, how much he has some conditions. So one has to try to really reach the state where our connection becomes revealed. Why do the Creator give such taste of dust to the words connection between us? That's because we discover how much our nature is opposite the connection. The opposite of connection is essentially our entire life, where everyone just wants to live in and of themselves with no connection to others, taking advantage of others. That's a different story, but not to connect, and that's a result of the conditions that were predetermined in the beginning of creation, certainly made it unprecisely in order for us as created beings to feel a phenomenon only through the opposite phenomenon, and so we have to recognize how far we are from each other, disconnected from each other, and from that we'll begin to get closer, and then we can measure the proximity between us, and thus find that connection between us and with the Creator. And the Creator is the measure of connection, the measure of proximity, the measure of mutual complementation between us. That will be called the Creator. So how do we measure the connection between us? The extent that your heart is willing to leave what it cares about and care about what your friend cares about. Yesterday we had a TENS meeting we were trying to go with the topic of getting together that we talked about in the lesson. We tried to bring our heart to the friends. We talked about the importance of the goal, how at the end of the meeting can we measure if we took another step forward in the connection between us. We had meetings in the past where we could say we're more powerful, more meaningful. How can we measure that we are moving forward in the connection between us and another step? I don't think that we can exactly measure it, because to measure it means you have to be in two opposite states, both connection and disconnection, and we don't have any of them for now, so we simply want to do whatever we can to get closer to Lishma. That's it. Italy. One, in the day-to-day practice, how can we live in the world without being so influenced by the falsehood of the world, and be able to maintain our intention to connection, Lishma, strongly? We absorb from the world all of the falsehood that's in it, and it exists in us. In addition to that, we also belong to an Apa, illumination that shines in us and keeps us somewhat above this world, so that we have some distinction between the spiritual world and this world. And here we have to add our labor, our effort, in order to increase the connection between us despite the forces of separation, the separating forces, and thus further and further and further in this effort to connect to each other. We have to continue until we achieve the initial true connection. It. For good morning, 2 questions. Please. Yes, what do I pray for in What? Exactly, I pray to be in connection with their friends so that in that connection we'll discover the upper force that unites us, and in that state we want to discover contentment to him, that we want to bring him contentment from the connection between us and from our connection between us to him, to the Creator. More than that is not needed. PT 6, Shalom Hell. Continuing. So this spirit in the T, this reality that happens every time we meet, and that brings us closer, and playing with us on the other hand, this force also pushes us apart all the time, pushes the friends apart. So it turns out that basically we kind of waver in the 10, and this force does with us whatever it wants. So the question is, it's like we're not working against the force opposite the force. The work is to work with a friend next to you, and that's it. You're not working with the force. Okay, we have to mostly work with the friends to discuss between us, to connect between us in such a way that we feel inside each other, all of us together, and then to the extent that we advance towards this connection, we'll begin to feel the upper force that resides within us, our sensitivity will rise, and then we'll begin to feel that we can detect him between us. That's what we need to do, and that is certainly in our hands. The friends are next to me. All the conditions of disconnection between us exist, and all we have to work on is try to connect, and in our efforts try to reach a single heart. Hef. To we live in two states, Lishma and Lishma for her sake, and the prayer develops instead of Lishma not for her sake. The question is the prayer born out of the state of Lishma? Yes, of course. What's most important for us in each and every state we're in is to achieve a common request from within us, from between us towards the Creator. This should be our main target. Where do we arrive at one man with one heart in our action, intention, and plea towards the Creator? Okay, all right, Italy. For in some of the events, the connection events, we come to a state where we feel that the light shines and makes us feel the trash within us, or distance, or hatred. Can such a state be called Lishma? Not yet. When I identify myself in just an egoistic state, that's not Lishma yet. Lishma is also weighed against Lishma, which I long for. Turkey 6. Whenever I try to enter the Lishma state, I get more and more under the influence of the ego. How can we overcome the ego and work for the friends? How we talked about it many times. We simply need to understand that we have no way to advance from the animate level to the human level if we don't connect. We have to connect, and we have to connect, and in this way advance more and more in connection. Other is no other means. Yes, it writes that if I believe there's an us besides him, I need to appreciate the action. What does it mean to appreciate the action? But I'm really performing the actions because I hold on to theirs, none else besides. In meaning, it's all in the intention. Doesn't matter what action, I always have to aim towards the Creator. Yes. Yeah, he said that we come to such a connection between us where we feel the first contact with the Creator, that we feel in the connection we want to bestow to the Creator. What does it mean? That from the connection between us we feel that we bestow to the Creator. We come to connection between us by feeling that the main point of connection between us is actually the point where the Creator is, and we are uniting around, connecting around that point, and this is how we begin to have a grip on him, to feel him, to grab him, to catch him. Okay, what you said, that we're beginning to feel that we bestow to him, or want to bestow to that central point. So how does it happen that we bestow to that central point? You want to shift to him, to move to him, your feelings, your tendencies. Yes, what is that central point? It's the point of connection between us, between our hearts and the Creator. Okay, yes, so it's unclear what's the difference between that what we just described, that the Creator is felt in the central point of connection between us, and what he writes there, that the Creator dresses in garments of Lishmer Hakudit. Why? Not what's then the difference between it as it depends on the quality of the connection between us, not on something outside, but on something inside between us. Unclear what's the difference in the quality if between us there are still all kinds of ego calculations. Correct among the correct ones, the right ones, then we're still in Lishma, and not for her sake. So out of this we have to still rise to higher levels where all our intentions, actions, thoughts will be direct only through the friends to the Creator. Is it possible that when we have these egoistic calculation, then the Creator dresses in that connection? Yes, of course, and from that point where we nevertheless feel connection to the Creator, but it's still egoistic connection between us that exists. How do we advance from there to Lishma? Pray for what is already revealed, even though so what could the prayer be for this time? If the Creator is revealed, it means we are already in connection between with Him, and there's no boundary between us. But he writes that it can be in Lishma. In Lishma the Creator is not revealed. So what does it mean that he dresses in Ish? He dresses in Lishma, but it's not like we discover it, we receive it, but it's not that he's revealed in the Creator cannot be revealed. The fact that his glory fills the world, that's obvious, but it's not like we discover it. Let's continue. Item 10. When the Creator shines to a person and gives him awakening in toe and work, there's no room for choice, because the pleasure forces a person to engage in that which gives him pleasure. For this reason, at that time, there's no place for choice. In such a state, he's not obligated to believe in the Creator to such an extent that he says that without faith he will not do this, since what affirms the matter is another cause, which is the pleasure. This is called, since it is not faith that causes this action, but the pleasure determines it for him and motivates him to work and increase his good deeds. Hence, although the Creator has given him a great awakening for tar and work, he cannot ascend in degrees of truth by this, since he acquired truth, meaning that the degree of truth must be acquired only by labor in acceptance of the burden of the kingdom of heaven. Voluntarily is one rewarded with climbing the degrees of truth each time to a higher degree, higher level. Again. Item 10. When the Creator shines to a person and gives him awakening into and work, there's no room for choice, because the pleasure forces a person to engage in that which gives him pleasure. For this reason, at that time, there's no place for choice. In such a state, he not obligated to believe in the Creator to such an extent that he says that without faith he will not do this, since what affirms the matter is another cause, which is the pleasure. This is called, since it is not faith that causes this, but the pleasure determines it for him and motivates him to work and increase his good deeds. Although the Creator has given him a great awakening for Torah and work, he cannot ascend in degrees of truth by this, since he acquired truth, meaning that the degree of truth must be acquired only by labor in acceptance of the burden of the kingdom of heaven. Voluntarily is one rewarded with climbing the degrees of truth each time to a higher level. Okay. Yes, labor in accepting the burden of the kingdom of heaven. What is that? Labor is something that a person does against his will in a direction of connection with a friends, and through them with a Creator. And what else did you ask? Labor in accepting the burden of the kingdom of heaven. Accepting the burden of the kingdom of heaven, that's the goal. You labor in order to accept the burden of the kingdom of heaven. Yes, when he is willing to accept any condition that the Creator sets before him in order to carry out the will of the upper one. Who is it there? Yes, res here by labor in acceptance of the burden of the kingdom of heaven by choice voluntarily. What does that mean? He chess to take upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven. That's an inner action. Outer action, I don't know what it's internal. External, it's an act that a person has to do. Thank you. Who is it there in the back? So again the same bit by accepting the burden of the kingdom of heaven voluntarily, so what he's freed from the upper W, and then he chooses by himself. What's through labour, he comes to a state where he has before him an opportunity to accept, to assume on himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven, but he's then free from the influence of the upper one, cause he spoke about a state before where the Creator awakened him, and here he says there's this kind of state where he accepts the burden of the kingdom of heaven by choice. Yes, so how could it be that he's relieved from the influence of the governance of the Creator, and he has real choice? Can someone explain to me what he's asking? Can. Yes, what is the choice between what and what? What are we talking about? It says that he has choice, and only when he has that choice he can really acquire the degree of truth. Yes, when there's an awakening from above, he can't. He's immersed in the pleasure. So what's the choice? What is the choice between what? When the Creator shines to a person, in the revelation of the light of the Creator is revealed and gives him awakening into and work, there is no room for choice, cause he received the awakening. Already choice is when he has to go against his will, because the pleasure for forces a person to engage in that which gives him pleasure. For this reason, at that time, there is no place for choice. That's clear. Right, what is interesting and good and sweet for us, we don't need choice in. This we are drawn to it naturally. In such a state, he's not obligated to believe in the Creator to such an extent that he says that without faith he will not do this. Why? Since what affirms the matter is another cause, which is the pleasure. This is called lishmer, not for her sake, since it is not faith that causes this action, but the pleasure determines it for him and motivates him to work and increase his good deeds. Clear so far? No questions about this? No, in other words, the pleasure determines, although the Creator has given him a great awakening for toe and work, he cannot ascend in degrees of truth by this, since he acquired truth, meaning that the degree of truth must be acquired only by labour in acceptance of the burden of the kingdom of heaven. Voluntarily is one rewarded with climbing the degrees of truth each time to a higher level. In other words, if I have great resistance and I have no choice, I can't rise, perform acts of bestow. So what do I do if I can't? I turn to the Creator, I ask him, and then I get help and rise to the degree of lishma. That's all that's written. Yes, follows from the text that when the Creator shines on the person, gives him an awakening, it's not good. What does it mean, good or not good? These are stages of progress, stages of climbing the ladder. Yes, but why does that even need to be? Apparently a person should work under concealment without revelation of the Creator, always have room for choice to exert and determine through effort. Why does the Creator give him awakening and pleasure? What? For by this he acquires new vessels, by this he acquires new vessels, and in this way he climbs up the ladder. What kind of awakening or pleasure is legitimate in the work? By continue by giving contentment to the Creator, but I don't want to feel the pleasure of bestowing upon him. Okay, but I need to get fuel from something. It also says there's an obligation to enjoy an active bestow. We learned it in the order of the assembly that we have to enjoy the importance of the work and so forth. So a person needs to have some awakening that fuels him to bestow, an awakening from me being bestowing, and that does not mean that the Creator shines on him, the light of ad shines on him, the upper force shines on him, that you are capable of performing an act of bestow. So basically only the light that goes into a vessel of reception is not good. Everything that has to do with we should learn long for of course. Yes, what does it mean to acquire the degree of truth? Friend, repeat it. What does it mean to acquire the degree of truth? Is that like buying a friend? Is it the same action? You could put it this way, it's similar. And how do you buy the friend? What does it mean to make this action of buying? I'm willing to pay, to make an effort, to labour in order to buy what is important to me. So let's say through the friends I simply exert in order to connect with the friends and through that I acquire their degree of truth. Yes, of course, it's like that. Can yes. Well, it looks from the text that only faith can take him out pleasure, meaning that to not work through the pleasure he has to receive faith or the kingdom of heaven. How does one assume that receive that of course from above, from the same source, from the creator he gets the power of faith. It is the power of he when he fills up with his force. With his power he can work with all the disturbances along the way. How does he ask for it? How does he? He needs to identify that blacks. That if he's in pleasure, how can he ask for faith? So he won't ask because he is in pleasure. Thank you. There's no question here. One contradicts the other. Next, item 11. In the verse, I shall not die but live, in order for one to achieve the truth, there must be a sensation that if one does not obtain the truth, he feels himself as dead since he wants to live. This means that the verse I shall not die but live is said about one who wants to obtain the truth. This is the meaning of Jonah. Ben, the son of Jonah, comes from the word in Hebrew h, fraud, and Ben, son, comes from the word main. Understands, one understands because one always examines the situation he's in and sees that he has deceived himself and he's not walking on the path. But truth means to bestow, meaning lishmer, and the opposite of this is fraud, and deceit, meaning only to receive, which is lishmer. By this one is later imparted the meaning emit truth. It again 11 in verse I shall not die but live, in order for one to achieve the truth there must be a sensation that if one does not obtain the truth he feels himself as dead since he wants to live. This means that the verse I shall not die but live is said about one who wants to obtain the truth. This is the meaning of Jonah, the son of, and Jonah comes from the Hebrew word hon, fraud, and Ben, son, comes from the word understands. One understands because one always examines the situation he's in and sees that he has deceived himself and he's not working on the path of truth. Truth means to bestow, meaning, and the opposite of this is fraud, and deceit, meaning only to receive, which is lishma. By this one is later imparted the meaning emit truth. Questions. Yes, what does it mean? Truth means to bestow. It's the quality of the creator, that's why it's called truth. No, what do you want? What is special about questions and answers? That there is a proper value in them to correct the soul. They have a supreme value for the correction of the soul. That's why they're special. Okay, last one. Gillad cleanness pertains to the need to be clean, so there will be no mixture of falsehood there when he wants to walk on the path of truth. Truth is called lishmer, as my says. One who works out of love engages in and follows the paths of wisdom, not because of anything in the world or because of fear or of harm, and not in order to inherit goodness. Rather, he does the truth because it is the truth, and the good will finally come because of it. Again, add 12. Again, cleanness pertains to the need to be clean, so there will be no mixture of falsehood there when he wants to walk on the path of truth. Truth is called, as my says, one who works out of love engages in and follows the paths of wisdom, not because of anything in the world or because of fear of harm, and not in order to inherit goodness. Rather, he does the truth because it is the truth, and the good will finally come. The good will finally come because of it. Okay. Yes, the one who works out of love does the truth because it is truth. What does it mean to work out of love when he already has the love of the Creator, and to him truth is the superior value? He's in it the highest value. He does the truth because it is the truth. Yes, because love and truth are the same, is the upper force, the upper law, and this is the matter of cleanness. Because he's clean, he does everything because of love. Cleanness means we have to be clean, so there will not be a mixture of a falsehood there when he wants to walk on the path of truth. Truth is called lishma. For her sake, as my mon is, says one who works out of love engages in and meter commandments and follows the paths of wisdom, not because of anything in the world or because of fear of harm, and not in order to inherit goodness, rather he does the truth, because it is the truth, and the good will finally come because of it. No, so what motivates him is the truth, that it's the truth, and he doesn't need anything else besides this. Truth is the highest level, it's the name of their creator. Yes, Danny. We read about Lishma that it comes by efforts, by labour, it's those additions that a person needs to find each time of efforts, otherwise he can't reach Lishma, right? Yes, it seems like that as the times goes by, a person comes into the path, organises his life accordingly, and organises a routine based on all the conditions that Creator gave him, and as time goes by it seems like these additions, additional efforts, labours, they kind of dwindle. There seems to be like there's less place for additional effort, and it seems like that's the condition. What condition? That the condition for Lishma is that extra labour that a person finds and makes each time. Right now, from looking at the process, it seems that the more we advance these places of finding that extra labour diminish. Correct. Okay, so what do you do with this equation? You search, you pray for the Creator to give you more possibilities to work. That's all we have it to said, that at the end of correction there's also great sorrow, because there's nothing more to do. Yes, Mr. With regard to the cleanness, that one has to be clean without any mixture of falsehood. What characterizes the cleanness? A person feels himself more and more dirty the more you advance, more corporeal, material, and lowly in his will to receive. Yes, but on higher levels, on higher degrees, it's not on the degrees that he had before. He feels the subtleness of the matter, right, but it doesn't feel clean. When can a person say, now I'm working cleanly, if he always feels that this load of the dirty will to receive that he carries, and one's inclination is greater than himself, and so forth? When can a person say, I'm now working with the in cleanliness? What he's constantly working in cleanness, but he doesn't reach cleanness itself. It's in its infinite. So what is the cleanness that already is considered Lishma? That what he cleans off of himself comes Lishma for her sake, and by this he is adhered to the Creator to some extent. What he cleans from himself becomes Lishma. Yes, of course, how else does he do it? These are all the connections. Okay, right, so a person needs to discover on the way that his will to receive is always lying to him and ask to be clean from that. He doesn't know what he's going towards, but he knows what he doesn't want. Yes, of course, and this is called then cleanness, where he understands the lies that lead him, what is revealed in him from the lies, from the dirt he wants to clean. That's it can. Okay, yes, and so following that, what is more relevant for our work, because in item 9, which we start the lesson with, he says that a person needs to relate everything to the Creator as the cause, and in the other items, or most of the text, we see that the work is to identify that he not there, and meaning it working against the negation. But in item 9 he says no, a person needs to determine that the Creator forces and obligates him by way of what's the question. The question is practical. When we want to move towards LMA, we do the accents of Lish connection between us. Now we need to determine that what the Creator commands us, or that we're not truly in the connection of Lishma, and we're not truly clean. So many discernments at once. The Creator is always the obligator. Where does everything else fit in? Where a person doesn't see that he's in Lishma, he's still in order to receive, and he's not clean. Even though he sees it this way, it's still the Creator arranging it, organizing it this way for him. How can you hold this entire system? Sometimes, many times, we focus on the connection we just heard in item 9. Again, that if he doesn't relate it to the Creator, he won't have gratitude, he won't be in the right direction, won't have that help from the Creator. Now, we also need to add that even though we do all that, we're not really in that. It's many things. What do we do? Attribute everything to the Creator, including himself, and it will not be difficult. What does it mean to relate to everything, and as well as himself? Adian, as much as possible just attach yourself to the Creator and that's it. What does it mean? How can a person hear only through connection and relating his actions to the Creator? Right, yes, reach devotion as much as you can imagine it, and when he discover he's not in that, he's opposite to that, pray and ask and still try to get closer. And how do you still relate these states to the Creator, where he seems to be following the commandment of the Creator? The Creator is giving him all these conditions out of which he can come to a request, and also when he's opposite, he's fulfilling the commandment of the Creator. Of course, these are the conditions that the Creator gives him, so that out of these conditions he can ask for adhesion. So maybe now the question became clearer. When a person makes an action of connection, he can say, okay, this is the Creator, gives me both the resistance and the opportunity to make some effort to connect, and I want to relate that to the Creator. But when a person is not in that action of overcoming, of doing something, prayer, thought about the friend, something, and so forth, how can he relate these actions to the Creator when he's not making an action of his own? So he can't. So what do you do in those states? There's nothing you can do, just continue until you come a little closer and a little closer and a little closer to the state, until you see that all those states come from the Creator. And what's the starting point to come out of that state? With that, he doesn't relate to the Creator connection with the society, so friends will direct him to understand that it's coming from the Creator, and then the next step, and then when he feels, understands to some extent that is coming from the Creator, he will strengthen his connection with the Creator, and in this way emerge from the situation. Okay, good, so we're moving on to the next part of the lesson. Let's sing a song. So 2 questions, let's answer 2 questions. The first question is, let's summarize between us the lesson. What are the main things we heard in the lesson? The second question is, how can we realize them in practice in the 10? We have 10 minutes for that. It's recommended to start with the first question, what are the main things we heard in the lesson? And the second round will be, how can we realize them in practice in the 10 an active workshop. I was very impressed, said, about how we measure the connection between us. I said I was impressed about him saying how we measure the connection between us according to the extent to which your heart is ready to abandon what you care for and start caring for what your friend cares about. I was mainly inspired by how much it was echoing what we are going through today. The same questions, but from a different place. It's the same questions, but from a different place. I felt as though we came out of the meaning of the 10 yesterday. Truly, it was the same. I was impressed by the 10 and from our hunger to study in a clean way, in a way that is as beneficial as possible. I don't know, it was a very deep lesson. Few things importance of our ability to measure two states, and we have to appreciate the fact that we're in Lishma not for her sake, unlike those people outside who are like beasts just living. We have this initial state